Have you ever noticed that most creative people are highly sensitive? And I'm not talking about emotionally unstable, I'm talking about sensitive. I understand how sometimes those two are correlated because in the past artists have gone off the deep end and have been emotionally unstable, but we're not talking about that, we're talking about sensitivity. So if you think about the creative's personality, it's very paradoxical, it's very contradicting. For instance, most creative people are both masculine and feminine. Most creative people are both introverted and extroverted. Most creative people are smart and naive. If you think you're too smart, then you kind of lose the curiosity you need to keep learning and keep achieving new things. Most creative people can understand objective reality, or the objective world, which is reality, and their subjective imagination. And this is called creative apperception. And this is, think of anyone like Steve Jobs and Apple before the iPhone was created. Steve Jobs had an image in his mind. He understood what the market needed and what the reality of the world was at the time. And he incorporated his idea that was in his imagination, aka Apple, and brought it to life. So that's the linking of the outer world objectively, or the objective outer world, and the subjective inner world. Creative apperception. Anyways, so the creative personality is very contradicting. A lot of people think this would be a bad thing, but it's really not. It's really a superpower. And let me explain. Creative people can feel the full spectrum of human emotion. Everything from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, and everything in between. And I know what you're saying. You're probably like, well, Mike, isn't that normal? Yes, it is normal, but it's not the case for most people. Why is that? The modern person at childhood, most people are creative. Most children are creative. And I think we can all agree on that. But as we get older and as we go through society, the filter of society, it is built in a way that suppresses your creativity. And I'm going to make another video on the education system, at least in America, and how it suppresses creativity. But that's for a different time. Most people's personality gets suppressed by the society they live in. It's called conformity. Most people conform to the society they live in. The problem with this is we are relinquishing, we are giving away our creative superpower. We are all naturally creative. We are all born creative. We all start with the capacity to feel the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. It does not mean you're emotionally unstable. It's normal. Being able to control your emotions is a thing, and every human should learn how to do that. But where the artist is born is they take advantage of their personality. So they stretch their personality to its full capacity, and they essentially are doubling the amount of experiences and interactions and emotions they have than the average person would. And if you're doubling the range of experiences you're having, then you're doubling the information that you're getting. And if you're doubling the information that you're getting, then you can have all that information to pull from when you go to create. Me, for example, when I was younger, it was very easy for me to make friends. Like I didn't have a problem making friends. Just put me in a room and I'd be making friends with everyone. I had a very open mindset when it comes to people and accepting different beliefs, different cultures, different races, different sects. And at the time, I didn't know what was happening subconsciously, but it has now served me in not only having an amazing social life and great relationships, but also I'm just exposed to more experiences, more information. For instance, if you are born in an impoverished country and you have no means of internet or anything, then you don't know what the outside world is. You think where you live and the experiences you have is all there is in the world. Think of the creative personality like a shotgun blast. Like a shotgun blast, it goes very wide. The average person is more like a pistol. And the pistol is very accurate, very direct. So the creative personality is like this, and everything that they've experienced and all the information that they come into is taken in with a wider range. They are more open. I think we've all had that relative who is very closed-minded to new things. And if you want to be creative, I think you have to be open to everything. You don't have to accept everything as truth, but being open to everything can certainly help you in creating. Have you ever wondered why people always tell you to travel as much as you can in your lifetime? It's because of the experiences and the emotions that come with traveling. It's almost like you've downloaded a new software in your brain. You've experienced something that you haven't experienced before. You experience different cultures that you haven't experienced before, different beliefs that you haven't experienced before. And now you are a more complete being. You're not as limited mentally. You've expanded the capacity of your brain. I think about the filmmaking world, and I look at the credits and I look up all these names in movies, and all these people are tenured, like very middle-aged and up. And you don't see a lot of young people. You're starting to see it more now because we have better resources, better education and stuff like that. But it makes sense because to be a good filmmaker, you have to experience life. That's just the truth. There's no fast track to making a good film. You can have all the technical abilities, but if you haven't lived life, then chances are you're not going to make a great movie. So part of being a creative is being open to life's experiences, being present in the moment. You don't want to have a closed mindset, but what has happened and what tends to happen with people growing up is we are all conditioned to some extent. We're all conditioned how to feel, how to think, and how to act. For me at least, I've spent the majority of my 20s trying to unlearn a lot of things that I was conditioned to believe, whether it's from my parents, whether from schooling, whether it's from the experience that I've probably misinterpreted. So if you're locked in your old ways, or if you're just locked into the ways of living that someone's taught you, and you're not open to new experiences and new emotions and new feelings and new thoughts, then you're going to have a very difficult time in your creative journey. Let me give you an example. So to be masculine, culturally, at least in America, to be masculine, you got to be tough, strong, and assertive all the time. And if you show any sign of weakness, then you are not a man. But let's be honest, any real man will tell you that's not true at all. You know, a real man knows how to be strong, tough, and assertive in certain situations, but also knows how to be comforting and vulnerable and gentle, depending on the situation. It's really the polarity of the personality that enriches the experience. Does that make sense? Let me say that one more time. It's the polarity of the personality that enriches the experience. Polarity, like a creative's personality is contradicting. It's both introverted and extroverted. Why is this important? Why is this important to understand? If you're both introverted and extroverted, you're both introverted. What do most introverted people do? They sit in their rooms, they probably read, they probably watch movies, they probably indulge in stuff that you would do when you're by yourself, which can be great. It can also be very bad. You can get lonely. You can become depressed. But if you're both introverted and extroverted, what do extroverted people do? They have social skills. They go out. They have fun. They have good relationships. They experience life outside of themselves. Other people can teach you a lot of things. So this is why the polarity of the personality is very important. Okay, just imagine for a second a person that identifies with the cultural definition of masculinity. He's the manly man. Showing affection is a sign of weakness to him. And this is a problem when it comes to being creative, because being vulnerable is necessary in art. Because when you're vulnerable, people can connect with you. If you're insecure, or if you're sad, or if you're depressed, and you put that in your art, other people can connect with that because other people are insecure, other people are sad, other people are depressed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Being vulnerable is a means to connection in art. And that's the beauty of art, is we're all flawed as humans. None of us are perfect. If you're not capable of being vulnerable, then your work will not have any truth to it. You know, if you're trying to create something and you're trying to make it perfect, or if you're trying to create something that's not really you, then people will sense that. And when I think of film, the best films that stick out to me are the ones that are true to their nature, you know? And it's like humans connect over suffering. It's because a lot of humans suffer. It's just human. We're imperfect, and we go through trials, we go through pain, we go through suffering. And it would be a lie to pretend like we don't do this, but that is what connects us. We can all agree, and we all have an innate knowing that we all suffer, and you have to be vulnerable to express that suffering. But the manly man struggles being vulnerable because of his limited personality. He thinks he's got to put a front on to be masculine. But what he doesn't know is that his definition of masculine is entirely misconstrued. I say all this to say your sensitivity allows you to experience more, which in turn allows you to feel more, which in turn allows you to create more. With every experience generates an emotion attached to it. And with that emotion, you can pull to create with. So again, if you have a creative personality and you're not closing yourself off to certain human emotions like love, joy, compassion, gratitude, then it can open you up to really pick from the litter of emotions to create with. But having a sensitive personality is a double-edged sword. And this is the part we were talking about in the beginning, where people get it confused with being emotionally unstable. Your openness and sensitivity can invite suffering and pain that the average person just doesn't experience. So you can let all these emotions and feelings consume you, or you can channel them into something else. And this is where the artist is born. The artist takes all these emotions that they're experiencing, whether they're good, bad, love, joy, pain, suffering. They pull all these feelings into a cohesive piece of art. And this is where most of the time the artist is fulfilled the most, is when they're creating. When you see a lot of artists depressed and isolated, it's because they understand that they feel more than most people. They understand that they feel emotions at an elevated level, and that's good or bad. You know, if you feel bad, you really, really feel bad. And it's not necessarily the emotions that get them depressed. It's more so the feeling of isolation because other people don't feel how they feel. So they feel more isolated than they do anything else. This is really why so many troubled people create such great works of art. And I do want to preface by saying you don't have to be troubled. You know, you don't have to be depressed to create great art. This just tends to happen. You can create amazing works with emotions like love, joy, compassion, gratitude. You don't have to put yourself in the other side of the spectrum. If you are creative and you are suppressing a side of yourself because this is the culture you grew up in, or this is how your parents taught you, or this is how school taught you, or this is how society wants you to live, cut it out. Like, cut it out. It's not only will doing that, suppressing a side of yourself, inhibit your work, but it's also just not healthy for you. Be open to new experiences. If you're in a conversation with someone and they have maybe different religious beliefs, you can have a conversation and not agree with them. You know, it doesn't have to turn into an argument. It doesn't have to end a friendship. You can accept what they say. You might not accept it as your truth, but you can take it for what it is. It's their truth, but not your truth. And when you do this, you start to empathize with other people. You start to love other people more. You don't cast as much judgment. And it'll just help you in creating, because now you can pull from more experiences than just your once limited mindset. So there's also a liberation factor when you realize that you've been living with a suppressed personality. You know, there's a feeling of liberation. It's like, oh man, I can feel sad. Like, I can cry. It's okay to cry, especially as men. Men are often kind of hated and ridiculed for crying. It's like, we're all human, you know? Like I said, there's times to be strong. There's times to be courageous, but there's also times to be vulnerable. And I think as men specifically in the creative world, it's super important to acknowledge your personality. Super important to stretch your personality as far as you can, to be as open as you can to new experiences, so you can get new information in your mind, which will eventually help you to pull for more work and better work. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you. This is only the second video on my YouTube channel, but I have plans on growing it and helping the creative community and kind of demystifying everything about creativity. I want to establish in people that you are born creative and we all have the creative capacity to create whatever we want. But somewhere along the line, the world suppresses it. So I want to reignite a passion for creativity, reignite the awareness that we are all creative, and see where the journey takes us. So thank you everybody for watching. Please subscribe, and until next time, love you guys.